Hello everyone, it is Nicholas Pythagoras, and I'm back with another video. It was a long overdue hiatus. Honestly, I was debating whether I should upload a video regarding explaining like where I've been. But I figured that you guys would rather listen to this discussion or watch this video rather than hear an explanation. So out of the two, I picked this one. And I am entitling this video Civilization Out of Time. Not just because it refers to what I perceive as the upcoming collapse of Western civilization, that Western civilization is out of time, but mainly to point out the fact the nature of Faustian civilization. And I would actually argue that this isn't a quality that's solely limited to Faustian civilization, but it's just that we live in this type of epoch in which this seems to be the case. And that quality, that proclivity that I am about to refer to is that Faustian civilization has a tendency to what I call the will to power. Basically, it breaks barriers and it seeks to conquer it, as opposed to living within a defined space, which it used to do. And so I'll take a brief moment just to kind of like recap the last like 1,000 years in terms of consciousness structures, and then I'll basically say where we're going and relate that back to this video. So basically, just as civilization started from 1000 AD to I would say 1500 AD, we lived in a one-dimensional to two-dimensional consciousness structure. And when I mean a two-dimensional consciousness structure, I mean we lived in an enclosed space where we were limited in space with our boundaries. We had enclosed boundaries, and we didn't really seek to expand. And when I mean we, I mean Western civilization. We didn't seek to expand our boundaries because we were more focused internally in our consciousness structure. But then when you see the turning of the new century of 1500, you see things start to, I would say, devolve. Like, for example, we had the Columbian Exchange where Columbus, 1492, close enough to 1500, it's a round estimate, where Columbus sailed the ocean blue and broke that confine and went outward into the sea. We also had the development of the word press, which allowed people to have, the printing of the Protestant Bible via the word press, which allowed people to break out of the spiritualness of Catholicism and kind of go into the realm of their own individual interpretation of the Bible, therefore devolving that spiritualism into a more individualized, personal interpretation that lacks the Catholic spirituality. And also around this time, you can see the artwork start to develop a more three-dimensional aspect as opposed to a two-dimensional aspect, therefore conveying the civilizational values at the time. And so we're transitioning in 1500 to about 1850 into a three-dimensional consciousness structure, and then when it hits 1850 to 1900, we are going into a more four-dimensional consciousness structure because Faustian man has conquered this three-dimensional space and is going into a four-dimensional space, which I'll get to that in a second. It's the introduction of time, and I will admit I'm borrowing ideas and kind of interpreting, regurgitating information from Oswald Spengler and Jean Gebser from Decline of the West and Ever-Present Origin, where they talk about different consciousness structures. And Jean Gebser makes the argument that around 1850 to 1900, we see this introduction of this new consciousness structure in which we incorporate time. And this is basically where Faustian man puts his will upon time. So and this is, again, the title of the video, Out of Time. Because think of time as another dimension. It's like a line. Faustian man hops out of time. We can see this represented, and I'm jumping a bit ahead here, but we can see this represented in let's say the invention of a video. Right now, you're watching me on YouTube, and you can go back in the video. So in a sense, you're going back in time, or you can skip forward in the video. So in a sense, you're going ahead in time. And so in a sense, you are outside of time. You are out of time. But going back to my main point, this introduction of of a 4D consciousness structure has to do with the bending of traditional Euclidean geometry and three-dimensional space. So I'll give you an example. So for example, imagine that you drew my hand on a paper, and this would be like a 2D rendering of my hand. But now, okay, we have a three-dimensional hand where it is in 3D, and it has depth now. But with the introduction of a four-dimensional consciousness structure, we have this thing called curved spaces, where things start to curve. So for example, the distance between my pinky and my thumb, let's just say it's like 180 degrees, okay? So the angle between my pinky and my thumb, I'll just put it like this, is about 180 degrees. But with the introduction of curved space, we see, for example, the collapse of that three-dimensional space, and so the angle, the distance between my thumb and my pinky decreases until it hits 0. Now I'm speculating, could this be a potential symbolic collapse of Western civilization, in which the civilization, collapses upon itself? Possibly. I'm not there to make the judgment, but I'm saying that I don't think that there's coincidences. But just reiterating, 180 degrees, it's collapsing on itself until it goes towards 0 degrees. And that's pretty much the symbolic representation of four-dimensional space. Now, I already touched upon video. I want to mention briefly, well, there's two things. I guess the first one is, if you look at the art forms in which that were introduced around the year 1900, I'm not sure exactly when they were introduced, but it has an interpretation of this four-dimensional consciousness structure in terms where it's playing around with viewing things in terms of their... It's a manipulation of sizes in terms of their angles from different... in terms of different perspectives. So it has to deal with the interpretation of seeing those sides from different perspectives. And it sounds very abstract. It sounds very weird. Perhaps I'll leave it, because I thought I would be more able to convey this this part of the discussion. So I'll just move on to the next topic. And in the next topic, I want to say, after this four-dimensional time, after man has put upon its will on four-dimensional time, I believe that we are heading also towards a five-dimensional consciousness structure. And this is very new. It's a very new insight that I've been seeing. And for example, we can see in the movies how it's very interesting that movies seem to be a somewhat, I don't want to say speculative, but a kind of a predictor of where the future is heading. So for example, I presume you guys have heard of the Mandela effect, or rather multiverse theory. So multiverse theory, in my opinion, is an outward projection of a five-dimensional consciousness structure. And mainly this has to do with, so 4D, you're going to have time incorporated in it, but 5D, you're going to be able to see the object in different points in time all at once. So for example, bringing my hand back into it, you're going to be able to see my hand, or my thumb and my pinky. Let's call this T sub 0, T sub 1, T sub 2, T sub 3, T sub 4. So you're going to be able to see all these different instantiations all at once with the introduction of a five-dimensional consciousness structure. And that's only possible aka with parallel universes, multiverse theory, in which you're going to be able to see different instantiations of an object at a given point in time. And the movie that came to mind when I was thinking of this, well, honestly, it has to do with any movie that discusses multiverse theory or parallel universes, is Endgame, where it's always this like, Marvel Endgame, where it brings in the multiverse theory, and it's like, oh, it's different universes, it's parallel universes, that sort of thing. And it's very, I would say, again, it's not a coincidence that they're bringing in that type of idea in such a recent movie, recent as in the last couple years. But again, I guess to finish off, I will also just go back to the Mandela effect, where the Mandela effect is that, like, oh yeah, we thought this thing happened, but apparently it didn't. So people think that the universe, our universe and another universe are like colliding, like our timeline and another person's timeline or another universe's timeline are colliding and then mixing to create this Mandela effect. And again, it's very strange how these things are coming together sort of around the same time, relatively around the same time, around the grand scheme of, around the same time relative to the grand scheme of, human civilization. But that's it. If you guys enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. If you like discussions such as these where we talk about existential phenomenology, philosophy, things of that nature, studying consciousness structures, and personally like the phenomenology of history and just studying phenomenon in general, please consider hitting the subscribe button. And I'll be talking to you guys in the next video. Take care.